Opening the center establishes control and invites development, setting the stage for an active middle game. Solidifying the center and preparing for queenside expansion, though slightly restrictive for the king's bishop initially. Establishing central presence, this pawn push immediately contests black's territorial claims. Unbalancing the pawn structure so early invites sharp tactical skirmishes and potentially weakens your kingside. Solidifying the kingside and preparing for fianchetto offers a robust defense against black's aggressive pawn thrust. Developing this knight now offers increased pressure against white's center and prepares for rapid castling. Positioning the bishop to guard the long diagonal now offers excellent defensive coverage and prepares for potential pawn advances. Seeking to disrupt white's central control, this bishop sortie initiates an immediate positional challenge and forces a reaction, potentially opening lines. Defending the pawn and preparing to castle, this bishop maneuver aims to resolve the check while maintaining positional flexibility. Shifting the queen to e7 subtly prepares for castling kingside and also allows for potential pawn breaks later, like c5. Solidifying central presence and preparing castling, this knight's deployment creates a flexible foundation for further queenside development. Developing the knight to a more active square, challenging central control and preparing for pawn pushes. Castling secures the monarch, initiating a safer middle game while maintaining central pressure. Sacrificing the bishop for the queen's knight disrupts white's central control and opens the d-file, creating interesting tactical possibilities. Reclaiming the center with the queen opens critical lines and prepares for a pawn push, putting immediate pressure on black's kingside. Asserting knight presence on a central outpost, this pawn chain can now feel a bit strained. Asserting queenside dominance now, forcing black's knight to a less active square. Solidifying the pawn chain, black prepares to challenge white's central occupation, aiming for greater piece activity. Embracing a central pawn thrust to seize space and cramp black's development, this move initiates a strategic battle for control of the board's core. Retreating the knight to d8 opens a clear path for the bishop, but leaves the kingside a bit exposed for now. Asserting central dominance, this knight aims to solidify white's spatial advantage and prepare for a kingside assault. Repositioning the knight to its original square doesn't address the white knight's imposing presence in the center. Solidifying the central pawn chain, this maneuver prepares to potentially launch a kingside attack or reinforce the d5 outpost. Solidifying the kingside pawn structure, g6 prepares for a potential kingside fianchetto, but might weaken the dark squares around the king. Opening the e-file now creates immediate pressure on black's kingside development and challenges their pawn structure. A critical decision, unlocking the f-file but weakening your king's pawn cover significantly. Capturing the pawn on e6 cracks open lines, creating immediate attacking prospects for white's kingside cavalry. Capturing the pawn unleashes tactical complications and immediately seeks to disrupt white's central pawn structure. Clearing the central tension, white initiates a strategic exchange, aiming to disrupt black's pawn structure and gain a central outpost. Liberating that bishop allows it to eye the weakened kingside pawns now. Unlocking the central files opens aggressive possibilities against the castled king. Securing the king after the storm, black now aims to regroup and connect their rooks. Unleashing a knight to pressure the weak f7 pawn, threatening a swift king hunt. A bold repositioning, aiming to disrupt white's central pawn structure and potentially exploit the open f-file for later counterplay. Recentering the queen aims to support a central pawn advance and prepares for future kingside action. Solidifying the pawn chain on the queenside, preparing for potential queenside expansion or defense against white's central pressure. Bringing the rook to the open file offers a dynamic way to pressure the opponent's weakened queenside structure. The queen vacates its post, potentially enabling a pawn advance on the kingside or preparing for a tactical skirmish. Solidifying the king's sanctuary, while preparing for a central pawn thrust aims to neutralize black's active bishop. Challenging the knight on g5 opens lines for your rook, but leaves your kingside pawns somewhat exposed. Regaining central presence, this knight repositioning prepares for potential pawn advancements or a swift retreat if challenged. Unleashing a pawn storm towards the enemy king now aims to shatter defensive structures and create attacking opportunities. Unleashing an attack on the kingside, white initiates a bold pawn thrust to shatter black's defensive structure. Aggressive knight jump disrupts white's pawn structure and aims for central influence. This maneuver redirects pressure, aiming to exploit the open files and create a dangerous battery against the black king. A knight's central advance now looks less threatening, opening a file for your rooks. Striking at the pawn chain, this advances white's initiative and opens crucial attacking avenues toward the weakened black king. Opening this central file creates immediate tactical possibilities and forces white's pieces to react. Opening the e-file is a serious commitment. It creates immediate contact and forces a critical assessment of the dark squares around black's king. Shifting the bishop to *g6* creates a crucial diagonal for potential counterplay and solidifies the kingside pawn structure, seeking to disrupt white's piece coordination. Repositioning the rook to the f-file enhances attacking potential against black's king and supports a potential pawn push. Shifting the queen to the queenside offers potential activity against white's rook, but neglects the central pawn weaknesses. Striking at the queenside creates immediate tactical issues for black's coordination. Threatening to unravel white's queen and pressure the central pawns creates immediate counterplay. Snatching that pawn risks opening lines prematurely. Instead, consolidate your queen's position and prepare for the coming storm. Injecting immediate queenside pressure, this maneuver aims to disrupt white's pawn structure and activate the rook. Squeezing the rook creates tactical opportunities, potentially opening lines or forcing positional concessions. Seizing the exposed rook on b2, black initiates a daring raid, hoping to destabilize white's queen and create further complications. Unleashing a knight's daring foray into enemy territory offers a tantalizing prospect of disrupting black's fragile pawn structure and threatening the queen. Liberating your knight from the pin allows for counterplay, though it leaves your king exposed to a potential kingside assault. Unmasking the king, this exchange opens critical diagonal threats against the weakened black monarch. Seeking to exploit the open file and create new attacking avenues. Unleashing a decisive check, forcing the king's awkward retreat and creating immediate threats. Shifting the king away from the exposed position on the first rank finally offers a breath of defensive air. Unlocking the kingside with a decisive pawn sacrifice, white targets the exposed black monarch, creating immediate threats. Embracing the exposed king's plight, black redirects the queen, seeking counterplay amidst the collapsing queenside structure and white's advancing pawns. Unleashing the rook ignites a fierce attack on black's weakened king, seeking to penetrate the center. Preserving the passed pawn is paramount, but this passive maneuver surrenders initiative and allows white to consolidate. Sensing the queen's entanglement, this capture ignites a powerful pawn storm and opens lines towards the black king. Seeking respite, black steers the queen to safety, but white's rooks now have open lines to exploit. Unleashing a dramatic discovered check, white immediately targets the exposed black monarch and forces a tactical sequence. Protecting the king is paramount, as the white rook now occupies a very aggressive central square, threatening immediate checks. Securing the decisive pawn, while simultaneously exposing the black king further. Sacrificing the rook is a desperate gamble, exposing the king to immense danger on the kingside. Unleashing a decisive discovered attack, white sacrifices material to expose the black king's fragile safety.